Hi guys, hope you all doing well. Welcome back to our channel, and in this video I'm going to talk about conditional access app control. And the policy we are going to configure will be session control policy, wherein we will add an action wherein a user will not be able to cut, copy and paste any information from a specific session altogether. So if you're watching this series from the beginning, in the last video, we have discussed what is conditional access app control and how exactly it works. Whereas the agenda of this video will be knowing how session control policies work for browser-based sessions. Then we'll also talk about what will be the user experience. And lastly, I'll talk about some of the very basic network requirements which you have to keep in mind. Okay. So this is the deck which I have used in the last video just to make you guys understand what exactly it means when we say session policies. Now, session policies, as we know, they are specifically targeted for browser-based session. But when we talk about conditional access app control, we know that these kind of session control actions or these kind of monitoring that you are doing for the entire session or these kind of session policies that you are going to create from MCAS portal will get applied once the conditional access part is completed, right? So let's say once the user is allowed to access a particular resource, then the session control policies will get triggered. And that's the reason of creating a conditional access policy first and then routing the traffic through CASB endpoints. That means through reverse proxy endpoints. So in terms of implementing conditional access app control, session control policies, you have to create conditional access first, then select this option which says use conditional access app control, and in the sub option category select custom policy. Now what this will do in a nutshell, that once the conditional access part is completed, all the traffic will get routed through these endpoints. And what will happen in the nutshell, that the entire session which is getting established between the user's device and the service which the user is accessing will start getting monitored. And if the user would try to perform any activity which he or she is not allowed to, that particular action will get blocked. So this is how exactly session control policies are going to work for a browser-based sessions, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my browser, and before I can show you everything in action, I would like to talk about the network requirements itself. Okay, so when we talk about network requirements, you have to make sure that these endpoints are whitelisted for outbound connectivity in terms of accessing MCAS portal, which is portal.cloudappsecurity.com. Okay, but when we talk about access control and session controls, you have to make sure that all the clients should be able to communicate to these particular endpoints. Okay, now as I've said before, that the step number one would always be creating conditional access policy. But let's say as of now, there is no conditional access policy that exists in my tenant, which should route the traffic to MCAS endpoints. That means the reverse proxy endpoints. Okay. In this case, if I will go and try to create a policy directly, which is moreover a session policy, you will get an error, and that will be that as of now there is no application that has been configured for conditional access app control. Okay, so as of now this is a fresh instance of MCAS, a completely new tenant, and I would like to show you guys the experience that you will get if you don't have proper configuration in place. Okay, so now we'll follow the steps that we have mentioned in our deck. That means creating a conditional access policy first. Okay, so for that, I'm going to click on Azure AD, and then I'm going to click on security, and then I'm going to click on conditional access, and here I'm going to click on new policy. Okay. Now, since we are implementing session control, I will simply name this policy as, let's say, block. Okay. And this is for, let's say, exchange. Okay. That means the user will not be able to copy any content from the exchange portal itself. Okay. That means outlook.office.com. Okay. Now I'm going to click on user, and then I'm going to select one specific user to which I will be applying these policies, and I'll click on select. Now the next step is to go ahead and select the application, right? So here I'm going to select exchange. Okay. Now the reason behind selecting one specific application is to make you understand that you can actually have different type of controls binded for different applications altogether. Okay. Now, I'm not going to add any device condition, but if you want, for sure, you can add, let's say, hybrid devices or compliant devices in the exclusion list, or you can define any conditions, whatever you want. Okay. And now, instead of going to ground section, I'm straight away going to session, and then I'm going to click on this option which says use conditional access app control. Okay. Now, as you can see that there are three options. The first one is monitor, and the other one is block downloads, and the next one is use custom policy. If you want, you can add these features directly from here, because this is also moreover related to session control itself. But just to show you that how you can create different type of policies from MCAS portal itself, I'm going to select this option. Now, what does this mean? That whenever these conditions are met on behalf of a typical authentication request which has reached Azure AD, the traffic will be routed through MCAS portal altogether. Okay. Now, before I go ahead and just create this conditional access policy, what I would like to show you is the current user experience. So for that, I'm going to open a new browser, and there I will try to sign in with my user ID. That means the same ID which I have scoped for the conditional access policy. And let's see what is the behavior that we are getting right now. Okay. So if I'll go to outlook.office.com, I'm going to select my account, and then I'm going to type in my password. Okay. Now, as of now, just understand that this is the authentication process. Right after this, conditional access will be applied, and once I'm allowed to access a particular resource, then only the session control policies will be applied. Okay. So as of now, as you can see, the moment I typed in my credential, I clicked on yes, I just landed up to the home page altogether. Okay. Now I'm just going to click on sign out, and I'll close this browser, and I'm just going to click on select. Okay. Now, as you can see, it is giving you the warning over here, which says that policies in report only mode require compliant devices may prompt the users on Mac and iOS and Android to select a device certificate. Now, as of now, you can just ignore this particular warning. It's nowhere related to the configuration that we are doing. So what we'll do is we'll switch on this particular option, and then we'll click on create. And this warning that you get is the typical warning which you will get if you will keep a conditional access policy in a report only mode altogether. Okay. So in my case, I'm just going to switch on this policy, and then I'll click on create. Now, once this policy is created, only the first step is completed. That means that if PIM, which is my user, would try to access Exchange on a browser, or let's say on a rich client application, the traffic should be routed through MCAS endpoints. Okay. In your case, when you are doing these kind of configuration in your production environment, or if you have to test it with all the combinations, make sure you have also selected the browser platform. Okay. Or to show you in the best possible way, what I'll do is let me just go ahead and add the browser condition as well. For that, I'll just click on configure, and here I'm going to exclude all these options, and then I'll make sure that we have the right configuration. Okay. So now if I go to what if, and here if I'll select my user again, let's say PIM, and then I'll click on select, and then I'm going to access, let's say, exchange. I'll select this one and I'll click on select. I'll click on done. And here I'm going to say, let's say I'm coming from browser and from any location. Show me what is going to happen. So perfect. Our conditional access policy is getting applied. Okay. Now still if I'll go to my conditional access app control page, you see I'm getting the same message. So I'll again click on policy. I'll click on create policy, and then I'll click on session policy. And as you can see, I'm still getting the same message. Now the reason behind that is that there should be one active redirection that should exist for MCAS endpoints. Now what do I mean by this? That let's say if now I would try to access exchange with my account, which I have scoped for this conditional access policy, we will no longer get these warning messages. Okay. So I'll again open my different browser, and now I'll go to outlook.office.com. Okay. And this time just pay close attention to the address bar itself, and you will see multiple CASB endpoints getting introduced. Okay. Just to be sure about the traffic redirection to CASB endpoints, I have also initiated a Fiddler Trace. Okay. So now I'm going to click on my account and let me see if Fiddler is running. Perfect, it's running. And I'm going to type in my password. Okay. Now I'll click on sign in, and now I'll click on yes. Now just see at the top, you will see a CASB URL that came just for a couple of seconds and then it went. So if I go back to my Fiddler, and let's stop this Fiddler Trace, and let me show you the CASB URL. Okay. So this is the one. Let me maximize this, and I'll go to inspectors, and then I'll go to raw. And as you can see, this is my CASB URL. If I'll click on view in notepad, let me increase the size. As you can see, these are the endpoints where the request is getting redirected, right? But since we don't have any policy defined for CASB, that means on MCAS portal, it was a simple sign-on. That's it. So I'm again landed back to my page. That means the home page of Outlook without any restrictions. So if I'll click on any email, and if I'll try to copy this, and if I'll come back to my notepad, and let's say if I try to paste, as you can see, I'm able to copy paste. Okay. So I'll close the notepad. I'll sign out from this browser, and I'll again come back to my browser where I have signed in with global admin credential. And here I'm just going to refresh this page, and let's see if we still get the same warning or not. And the expected behavior is we should not get the warning message. Whereas you can see the warning has been removed from the bottom of the page as well. Okay. So now let's begin by knowing what needs to be done on this particular portal, which is the CASB portal. Okay. Make sure you have valid credentials. That means you are signed in with a particular account who has the privilege to make changes. Once you have completed the conditional access policy configuration, then come to this particular console, click on policies, then click on create policy, and then click on session policy. Okay. Now by default, it will give you multiple templates. Okay. So in order to just block, cut, copy, paste, you can choose any of the templates which is moreover referring to the same conditions. So let's say I'm not going to do any data inspection. It's a simple policy that I'm creating to begin with, but for sure I will cover each and every of these policies that are getting listed over here. So in this particular testing, just select this option which says block, cut, copy, paste on real-time content. Click on apply template. What this will do in a nutshell, it will apply some of the filters for you that you need. Okay. Now, as you can see, the name of the policy says block cut copy paste on real-time content inspection, but I'm not going to do any content inspection, so I'll remove these details. Okay. Now here I'm going to say it should be high severity, category should be DLP itself, block activities. And when you should block activities, when the device which the user is using is not hybrid or compliant or does not have a valid client cert. Now basically you can create multiple filters over here to scope the right session which you want to. So I'll add one more wherein I'm saying if the user is using Exchange. Okay. Now there is one more thing which I would like to highlight here, and that is, as you can see that we have created use conditional access app control, or we have scoped that particular option of use conditional access app control for only one application. So that's the reason only Exchange is getting listed. Now, depending upon the new applications that you will keep on adding, this list will get expanded. Okay. So here I'm saying that only for Exchange, if a particular user is coming, so let's add the user filter as well. I'm not sure whether the user filter is going to work as of now or not because it's not connected. Yeah. So as of now, I have not connected the Office 365 applications. That's a different aspect which I will cover in the upcoming videos. But the fact is that you can have a typical group imported or some users added manually, and then you can actually scope those particular users or that particular group here. This is something which I will be covering in the next video altogether. Okay, so let's say if I'm adding a typical user here as well, then only for that user a specific policy will be applied. Now, as of now, there is no user scope here. That means for any user, if any traffic is getting routed to the MCAS portal itself, all these policies will get applied. That means this typical policy is going to get applied on every request that is reaching MCAS endpoints. Okay. Now here it says use content inspection. I'm just going to uncheck this particular box. That's all I'm going to do. Okay. Now here you see I'm getting this prompt of block. Here I'm going to say also notify user with an email, and here I'm saying customize block message as, let's say, ConceptsWork doesn't allow this action. Okay. And now I'm going to say send alert as an email, and I can type in my global admin address over here, which is global@learnmcas.onmicrosoft.com. So basically, in the real world scenario, this could be your SOC email or the team, or the team members who are part of your SOC team. This could be a DL as well. Now, to get into more details, you can actually add a phone number here as well, which should receive a text message. Now, these kind of controls you should bind with exceptionally high alert categories of activities. Now, what do I mean by this? That the policies that you are scoping for your executives, if you want, you can go to this particular level as well, wherein you are getting a text message on your device so that you should take real-time actions as well. Okay. Now what I will do is I'll simply click on create. That's all I'm going to do. Okay. Now once this policy is created, I'll again try to sign in with my user, the same user with which we tried signing in before, and you'll see a lot of difference in terms of user experience altogether. Okay. Now, once this policy is created, you can come back to this particular console and then select the type of policy that you are creating, and your policy will get listed over here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see what will be the user experience altogether. Okay, so for that, I'm going to open a new instance of my browser, and now I will go to outlook.office.com, and I will try to sign in with the same user with which I signed in before, which was this one. But before I go ahead and initiate this particular sign-in, let's capture a Fiddler trace as well in terms of knowing which instance or which endpoint is actually blocking the cut copy paste actions. Okay, so I'm going to type in my password and then I'll click on sign in. There's a typo. Now it should be good. That's it. Now I'm going to click on sign in. And as you can see, this is a typical CASB endpoint. And if you will try to recall the experience that we have experienced before, we were not getting any warning, right? Before also the traffic got routed to this endpoint. But now since you have a valid policy created on the MCAS portal, I'm getting this warning. Okay, so now I'm going to click on continue to Microsoft Exchange Online. Okay, and now I will be landed to the Outlook homepage wherein I will be able to access all of my emails. Okay, but see the difference. It's mcas.ms, right? Now, if I come back to the page wherein I was showing you the network requirements, you see this mcas.ms. So these are the typical endpoints which are used by MCAS reverse proxy architecture in terms of binding different session controls. And if you want to know more details about this, make sure you keep a track on the Fiddler Trace itself, which is going to show you a lot more information in terms of what actions are, coming as a response, or which endpoint is doing what kind of action when it comes to the session altogether. Okay, so I'll come back to my browser now and I'll click on my email, and let's say I select this particular content and now I try to copy. Okay, so I'll select this and I'm going to press Control C, and as you can see, I'm getting action blocked. And the message that I'm getting here is ConceptsWork doesn't allow this action. It's the same custom message which exists in my policy. Okay, so let's say if I come back to my policy, I'll click on this particular option and I'll go to that custom message section. You see, this is the same set of information which I'm getting on my user instance. Okay, so likewise, I have selected Exchange. You can go ahead and select any application. And likewise, I have selected a typical condition wherein I'm not going to apply session control on those devices which are, let's say, compliant or hybrid Azure AD joined. You can actually select any scope here that exists. Likewise, location parameters, right? Users, even browsers, user agent string, whatever you want, you can select here, and then you can specifically define the control that you want to apply. Okay, you can either have only monitoring in place. Likewise, the alerts will be generated, but the user will be allowed to cut copy paste. It's completely your choice what kind of controls you want to implement. Okay, now there will be a separate video altogether of how to inject these controls with Power Automate, but within the scope of this particular video, this is how exactly the session control policies work, and this was just one of the use case. Okay, so let's talk about a quick summary of what all we have discussed in this video. We have discussed about session control policy, how the block cut copy paste policy works, what are the network requirements, and what will be the user experience. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how you should control file download. Okay, so if you think that this channel is helping you to learn anything new, please feel free to subscribe and share this video with your technical community. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.